So this is a video on Asmongold's main channel that he just uploaded, and the title of it is Everything is Woke. And I'm not going to watch the whole video, but I'm going to react to a small part of it right here. And this is a clip of the Actman versus Andy Pants debate that Asmongold is going to be reacting to. And I've made my point very clear where I stand on that, whereas Andy Pants Gaming might be somebody that I would agree with in terms of his takes with his videos, but the reality of it is he's shown himself to be a complete and total fraud because he silences his comment section when they are roasting him or when they disagree with him. He tried to false flag Actman's channel, and he just showed himself to just not be authentic from that standpoint. And so even if I don't like Actman, Andy Pants Gaming is a complete and total fraud, and so I stood with Actman through that whole false flagging situation. With that said, there's a few takes in this that I just disagreed with in the first few minutes from Asmongold, so let's check it out. Everything is woke.
This is inconsequential,
but this part is very relevant.
I never have watched this. I have no idea what even happened here.
Told you, I think it's incredibly strange to talk about Concord and not. Told you, I think it's incredibly strange to talk about Concord and not mention the clear woke slop. And you make fun of people who use the word woke, and you never use the word, even though it completely describes what's going on right now.
Now, the key right there is that he says that Actman has never used the word woke. I don't know if that's true or not, but Actman did not challenge him when he said you've never used the word woke. That is the kind of the interesting point that kind of stood out to me.
Now in gay games.
So the thing about the word woke is it harkens back to that old story we all read and were taught when we were growing up, the boy who cried wolf. These days, it's the boy who cried woke. There is so much disingenuous criticism using the word woke. The word is so liberally applied to everything.
This is why we banned it on the subreddit, by the way, for a while.
So, well, hang on.
Is because people use the word woke the same as they use the word like racist or like a few other things, where it's like this is like basic.
So did you ban the word racist? I mean, we've gotten to a point where words, a lot of words take a lot of different meanings these days. So did you ban the word racist? Because you said you banned the word woke because in your subjective opinion, people weren't using it properly, so you banned the word altogether. Does that apply to every other word that you subjectively think is being misused? I'm very interested to know the answer to that.
It's like a filler word because I don't know how to actually define what the problem is.
I do, in terms of me. So my definition of wokeness is when identity politics are the sole focus of the project, that is the #1 goal in your project is identity politics. We need representation, we need diversity, and that is going to be our focus. So when that is at the forefront of your project, then everything else is going to suffer. Star Wars Outlaws is a classic example of that. Concord is a classic example of that. Ghostbusters 2016, classic example. Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, classic example. When identity politics is the #1 focus of a project, everything else is going to suffer. So that doesn't mean that things that are successful and good can't be woke or have woke elements to it at all. But when you see something like Concord that was absolutely destroyed from the start because you had an activist involved and the only thing they wanted to create was something based on representation, not a fun video game, not something that was entertaining, not something with a good story, not something that was going to take care of the fan base. No. The forefront was identity politics. So that right there is wokeness. Now you can find things that may have woke elements in it, but still be a fantastic game or a fantastic movie or a fantastic television show, but that still doesn't mean that the elements aren't there. And we've seen time and time again that you can see those small little elements. And even if those small little elements don't destroy the project, the future is that's what they're going to push more of into the future. There's strategic ways that they can throw this stuff into it. So it's just like a disease. There's I don't know, cancer. There's horrible cases of cancer, and then there's mild cases. Well, if you don't deal with the mild cases in the beginning, then it's going to start spreading throughout. That's wokeness right there. You can find things that have small elements that doesn't hurt the game or hurt the movie or hurt the project in the beginning. Then you find projects that just at the forefront, they're like, all we want is identity politics, and we're going to shove this into it, and we're not going to back down. And then when everybody rejects this garbage, we're going to call the whole fan base racist and sexist. That's essentially what I consider it.
So I'm just going to use like this bucket word that somehow is going to apply. DEI is the new woke? Yeah, DEI is, yeah, exactly.
Thing, because there are so many...
There's two races in video games. There's white and woke.
Online grifters who produce daily outrage content that are saying, this thing is woke, this thing is woke, you should be angry, you should be upset. Tune in tomorrow for episode 4100.
Just say my name, Act Man. Just say my name. Okay, I'm right here. You can say my name.
69 on why Star Wars is woke now and why you should hate it and be mad and angry and upset.
Yeah.
There's so much of that going on that the ending of the story of the boy who cried wolf is that at the end there was a wolf out there, but because there were so many false claims of there being a wolf, the people didn't help him. So that's what's happened with the word woke. When I hear somebody, so
I think that Actman's bringing up a really good point here, and I think the best example of that point is that a lot of people have labeled games like Space Marine 2 as woke because it has I guess like a female commander in it, and I feel like that's not really what's happening. And a lot of people, well, sorry, that's actually not true. A lot of people is inaccurate. You're correct in correcting me on that. There is like a list of like what games are woke and what games are not woke. And I think Elden Ring and Space Marine 2 were put on that list. So when you...
What lists are we talking about? Now, I did hear people complaining at first about Space Marine, but now that it's out, I don't really hear any of those issues at all. I don't hear anyone calling Space Marine 2 woke. I heard people before it released with concerns, and again, there's nothing wrong with concerns, and I don't know if people are new to fandom, but fans overreact to the smallest bit of information, period. They always have, and they always will, because that is fandom. Go back to X-Men back in the day with Hugh Jackman cast as Wolverine. Guess what? Nobody liked Hugh Jackman cast as Wolverine in that X-Men movie. First of all, no one knew who he was. Everybody thought he was too tall. Everyone didn't think that he looked like Logan. But guess what? He was an amazing Wolverine, and he's still Wolverine to this day. But before the movie came out, people complained about it because that's what fans do. There's nothing wrong with fans complaining and arguing and talking shit because that's what fans do. So I don't think there's any complaints about Space Marine 2 now that it's out, but people having those concerns is completely fine and justified.
Paint with such a broad brush that almost anything could be, if you interpret it in this way, could be perceived as woke. You end up devaluing the word. No, I'm being serious, right? Baldur's Gate 3 too? Well, I could see Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 makes a lot more sense that it's woke because you can engage in homosexual relationships. You can, I think they have pronouns in the game. You can change a character's genitalia.
I haven't played Baldur's Gate. Having gay people in it doesn't automatically make something woke. What is the point behind, why are you putting that in there? Are you putting that in there for the sole reason of just having diversity, or are you putting it in there to tell a story? One of my favorite television shows of all time is Sons of Anarchy. Sons of Anarchy has a transgender character in the show later on in the seasons. Does that make it woke? No. Was there a story purpose behind that character that benefited the story? Yes. So no one had a problem with it because it benefited the story. No one was saying like, you can't criticize this show because it's got a trans character in it. No one was saying that. No, not at all. So just implementing something that has an identity does not make something woke. That is not what it means at all. And that's what people generally speaking are saying when they're complaining about this stuff.
With like not having them have a different body. I feel like Baldur's Gate 3, like you could make an argument that like, yeah, sure, this is a woke type thing, right? It's just that people don't care because it seems like it's an authentic product. And so I think that what happened...
Authentic is the key word that he just used right there. People love Baldur's Gate 3. People are loving that game. Because why? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a good game. So that means that the focus on identity did not destroy the development of the game. That means that the game had really good people working on it for the right reasons. They developed the game. They developed a good story. They developed good gameplay, and the fan base is happy with it. Does it have elements that could be considered woke? Yes. Does that mean that the game is overall woke? No. We'll see what happens in the future. But if a game is good, a game is good. Star Wars Outlaws was not good. Why was it not good? Was it because identity was at the forefront of the project? Maybe. Maybe Ubisoft just sucks. We know Lucasfilm sucks. I don't know the answer to that question, but that's one reason. That's one of the main reasons that Star Wars Outlaws is hated. Right now, I'm playing Echoes of Wisdom. That's the new Legend of Zelda game. Guess who the main character is? Zelda. A woman. Oh my goodness. Jeremy, how are you playing that woke game? Well, it's not a woke game. It's a really good game, and I'm enjoying it, just like I enjoyed Metroid Dread, which is my favorite game of the last decade that has a female character in it. Why? Because it's a great game, and Samus is a great character. There's nothing wrong inherently with having female characters or non-white dude characters. As long as they're created for the right reasons, no one really gives a shit.
Is that people are trying to like identify every instance of something being woke, but I think that if you retroactively apply this to a lot of other games, you would see other games in the past that have also had this issue as well, right? So like, for example, like Space Marine 2, you could also say like Gears of War, right, would also be woke because of Coltrane and Dom, right? So that's...
You can't retroactively apply wokeness to anything, because you have activists now that are working on these projects, and the activist entire focus, their existence is based on identity. So they are creating characters, and they are involved with the development of the game, and their sole focus is identity. So you can't retroactively apply this to any games from the past.
Seems like kind of a bad argument, a bad way to look at it. So the problem is that I think that people have started using the term woke for too many different things, or Halo, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, wow, you know, Master Chief has a woman that knows everything, that tells him what to do. And, you know, Sergeant Johnson's like this black guy, and like, you know, he tells everybody else what to do, right?
That's not woke. Oh my God. That is not even remotely close. Now, to Asmongold's point, do people overuse the term woke? Yes, I've said this before, and it's kind of evolved. So it used to be SJW was the term that woke is now, and now DEI is becoming what woke is now. But I've made videos in the past that said if everything is SJW, nothing is SJW. I've said that many times. And I think I even applied it to where Gina Carano in The Mandalorian, when there were people that were complaining about Gina Carano in The Mandalorian. I'm like, there is nothing woke about this. There's nothing SJW about Gina Carano being in The Mandalorian. You go back and watch my video on it, even though a bunch of weirdos on Twitter have tried to say that I had a problem with Gina being in Mandalorian. That is not the case. My video is still up on this channel. And I said, like, Gina Carano is the most believable person in this role. And in real life, she's proven that she's a badass. So I had never had a problem with it. So, but the term of like, yeah, if everything is SJW, nothing is, that is something, yes, with woke, it is being overused. No doubt about that. I'm not here to argue that point.
If you want to look at everything through that lens, it's like if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I do think Actman's bringing up a good point that if everything is woke, then nothing is. And I think that the problem is that Concord, which is like, in my opinion, definitely a woke game, like 100%, is that if you don't figure out a way to like grade this or to have any sort of like measured criticism, you can't say Concord is as woke as Space Marine 2, right?
It's not about as woke, because that's not how it is. Like, everything doesn't have to be the same amount of wokeness. So with Space Marine 2, I have not played it yet. I'm actually looking forward to playing it. I've heard nothing but good things about it. But like I said, you can have games that have a minor woke element in it, but it doesn't mean the game is woke, but the building blocks are starting to form there. So like Star Wars is a classic example. The heavy majority of the Star Wars fan base, present party included, had no problem with Daisy Ridley being in the lead role of The Force Awakens. Nobody. No one had a problem with it. Movie came out, made $2 billion, huge success. Everybody was excited for The Last Jedi. And then after The Last Jedi came out and people started criticizing it, suddenly it was like, well, you guys are just intimidated by women in Star Wars. And then Star Wars fans were like, what? Women have been in Star Wars. What are you talking about? Been plenty of women in Star Wars over the last 4 decades. But Disney started to say, no, you're mad because there's women in it. You're mad because there's identity in it. And you're against representation. And people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then it started to become, everybody started to realize, hold on just a minute. Daisy Ridley, or let's just say Rey, because I don't want, it's nothing against Daisy Ridley, because I think Daisy Ridley actually is, everything I've seen from her, she seems like a really nice person. Rey, Poe, and Finn, these characters were created for representation, not to tell a good story. And you started to see that when criticism started to come out. You're like, hold on, now we're all racist and sexist, but we've never had a problem with diverse characters in Star Wars. So you start to realize that, holy shit, it goes back to the beginning of this where storytelling was not at the forefront of Star Wars. Building on George Lucas's legacy was not at the forefront of Star Wars. Identity was at the forefront. A lot of us didn't see it at first until they started to have criticisms, and then the people involved with these projects said we're all racist and sexist. So you don't know how woke something is, but if you start seeing the elements of it, there's nothing wrong with calling it out, even if it's in a good game, even if it's a good movie, even if it's a good show. You never know. And it's up to the industry to take those fears away, not the fans.
Like this is, it's like, it's beyond retarded. So that's a huge issue. And I think it's making it hard for people that are like against this kind of stuff to be taken seriously because they're doing things that are unserious. If you accept everything, you stand for nothing. Well, yeah, but like this is like the opposite. Like if you don't stand for anything, then all you're doing is laying down. You're doing nothing. So it's like you have to be measured in your criticism and your feedback.
It's what happened to the words racist and sexist a few years ago.
He's right.
People
That's
were
exactly
saying
what
like air conditioning sexist and
Yes.
you know,
Right.
all this stupid
Which, by
shit.
the way, that was a
Well, hold on just a minute, though. So we go back to Andy Pant's original point. Andy Pant's original point is that Actman will not use the word woke to describe even Concord. So does that mean Actman will not use the word racist ever? Because the word racist has been essentially overused to the point where it means nothing. Well, that's not true because Actman still uses the word racist. So why won't Actman call something that's blatantly woke, obviously woke? That's the premise of the question from Andy Pants. And again, fuck Andy Pants Gaming. But that's the question, and it's a valid question that Actman cannot answer.
a real title. That was a legitimate thing. Women were saying that air conditioning was sexist.
It is racist and sexist, and it destroyed the meaning that those words are supposed to have.
I agree.
He's right.
The boy who cried racist.
Nazi is the worst one. I think Nazi and slavery are two of the worst ones that are used now, because people use, like, for example, I'm working at a job that doesn't treat me well as slavery, and like they don't, like, it's just, I think it downplays, like, we have real slavery, right? Like now we have real slavery. It's not in the US. Like, and by the way, if you are trying, like, if there's like 3 smart Redditors in chat.
So you're basically making the point that there's a lot of words that get overused by people because that's just the internet for you. So why did you ban the word woke from your Reddit? Do you ban every word that you think is being overused in your Reddit? That's just a question I'm asking.
That are like, well, what about prisons? Nothing like slavery. Nothing like actual slavery. If you think that, you're a retard, read a book. Anyway, just look it up on Wikipedia. It'll take you 5 seconds to learn that you're stupid. So if you compare that to like what's happening in like, you know, Africa, etc., that is actual slavery in some cases, right? It is really bad. And so people that compare those two things, I think, are being like very, very disingenuous, and they're like hijacking the emotional baggage of a word to make their own argument or their own feelings more important. And I think Nazi is the same thing. Like, the amount of times that I hear people being called Nazis because they don't want open borders or they're like Donald Trump fans is way too much.
The Boy Who Cried Sexist, The Boy Who Cried Woke. These are 3 books in a volume. Okay,
He's right.
That all have the same ending.
Dude, so it's I mean, you're a video game critic and you do video game analysis. So I find it shocking that you don't see the pattern in a game like Concord having 3 black females in it and not a single white man.
Oh, it did have a white guy in it, but I think the problem is that a lot of the people that have discussions about this topic have, like, they've already made up their mind about it, and they're looking at it from a one-dimensional perspective. And I think that's what happens with people that are like super anti and super pro this type of like inclusion, because they're not really looking at it. Both of these extremes trend to the perspective of, I am basing my opinion on things off of something that is not happening, basically, right? Exactly what happened to just make a good game. People are too emotional. Yeah, well, it's also that people are not really willing to like concede any ground. And I think if you're not really willing to see like the sense of like what other people are saying, then I think that you can't be reasoned with, right? You can't have people understand what your perspective is. So yeah, what if everything really is woke? I feel like then at that point, then
that's such a good fun. I mean, everything is not woke. Everything is not woke, but it's a valid point that a lot is woke. A lot is woke. And yeah, I mean, I think that it all comes down to an individual perspective, and you would need to ask someone, like, what is their definition? How do they define the word woke? And for me, I've already said it in this video. And identity being at the forefront of anything that you're creating. If identity is at the forefront and not story and not gameplay and not a good experience for the audience or the fans, if identity is your number one goal, that is wokeness. That is 100% wokeness. Now, maybe you've made a great game, and then you go, hey, guys, why don't we put a woman in this role right here? It's just a side role, and it gives us a little representation, but it's not hurting anything. That is still woke. That is still woke. That doesn't mean it's going to ruin the game, and it doesn't mean that the overall game is woke, but you're starting to see little elements creeping into it. Now, what if you put a woman in the role because you think that a woman needs to be in the role in order to maximize the role? That's not woke. There's nothing wrong with putting a woman in a role to tell a good story or to get the point across. But if you're just putting a woman in it for the sake of having a woman, that's a problem. Go back to my Black Panther review on this channel, where I said there was no need to have a white dude in Black Panther, but it felt like we only had a white dude in Black Panther for the sake of having a white dude in Black Panther. You could tell the whole story without having a white dude in the movie. That is on this channel. And I did like the movie Black Panther. So I am very consistent on these points. This is something that my haters will never clip out and never upload. They will never put that I said we didn't need a white guy in Black Panther to make it better. It could have been told perfectly with an all-black cast and no one would have cared. It wouldn't have mattered at all. But it felt like, we need to get a white guy in a prominent role here just so we have some representation. You don't need that shit, man. Never ever put identity at the forefront of anything when telling a story or making a video game or a movie or anything like that. Never do it. So I've talked about it many times. I'll repeat what I've said many times. Watching movies as a kid, Boys in the Hood, Above the Rim, Menace to Society, Juice. None of these movies that I recall, I don't remember a white person in any of them. And I loved all of those movies. I don't remember if a white person was in those movies. I know there was a white person in Higher Learning, but like, I don't really remember a white person being in any of those movies. And if there were, they were insignificant and they didn't matter. And I didn't care because these movies were told from a certain perspective and they didn't need white people in them. And they were all really fucking good movies. Okay? So that's the type of storytelling that I like, is where it's the story, the experience is at the forefront. And that's it. So I just wanted to react to this really quickly. There's still some more over there, so I will link back to Asmongold's video because he needs all the help he can get. So I'm willing to help out the little people here on this channel. I'm obviously being sarcastic, but I do like Asmongold and I like watching his stuff. And sometimes he has takes I agree with, and sometimes he has takes I disagree with, because that's literally everybody on the planet. There's nobody I agree with 100% of the time, and that's the way I like it. You guys have a great day. Thank you very much for checking out this video, and we will talk to you later.